Hello, Helene. This is Helene Rothschild, who arrived in Nashville in 1937. The interviewer is Rosemary May Arnold. As I see here, you want to tell me a little bit about yourself. I've known you for quite a while, but I really don't know your story at all. You want to tell me about yourself?
Well, do you want me to tell you since I came to the United States or before?
No, before. Where did you live and how did you live in Europe? Where do you come from?
Okay. I came from Czechoslovakia, the Carpathian section, actually, of Czechoslovakia. And I was born in a little village which was called Ciganovec, or Ciganovce in Bohemian. And the village was located about 6 miles away from the capital of the Carpathian section. I would say 6 miles, I mentioned already 6 miles. And that's where I went most of my schooling. I did my schooling over there in that little city. At that time, maybe the city was about 25,000 population. And after I finished I would say like high school and then business college, 2-year business college, I went to another city called Munkachevo and stayed there about a year or two. I wanted to get into the teacher college. But by then already Jewish children, girls or boys were not accepted to any teacher college because it was it was hard to get into any teacher college at that time already. So my brother sent me papers to come to the United States, which was in 1935. I think the first papers I received was in 1935. And my uncle, one of my uncles, signed the affidavit. At that time, you had to sign an affidavit that if you come to the United States would not have to support you, that the family would have to support you, to that effect. So my uncle who signed the affidavit was not accepted because he was already too old. So then my brother sent me another set of papers beginning of 1937, and of course all the works went into trying to get everything fixed so I could come out. And unexpectedly, actually, I received a letter from home that I should come back, that I was called to Prague to the consulate, to the American consulate, for an interview, and they will approve, whether I could come out or not. At that time, I was very nearsighted, and I was wearing glasses, very thick glasses, I remember. And they didn't think that the consulate would approve me, but anyway, I went, and one of my brothers came with me, who actually went to concentration camp during the war, but later he was, survived. And we came to Prague, and I was approved because after taking an intelligence test, they passed me because, I was very good in reading, arithmetic, and all that, so they passed me, and I came without even having to go back to my home. Right away, I just boarded a ship and came to the United States. I was told that was about the last ship or something, coming over from Europe.
Where did you board the ship?
In 1937. I boarded a ship in Prague, in Hamburg.
Oh, in Hamburg?
Hamburg, yeah, no, that's right, you're right, Hamburg, Germany. I had to go through Germany.
Because I know Prague did not have a port anywhere in Czechoslovakia.
No, they didn't know. You're right. In fact, we stopped off in Berlin there. We had to, before coming to Hamburg. And being young yet at that time, I didn't realize how really bad the situation was already for the Jewish people at that time. I went out and took a walk by myself in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was the city itself, Berlin, was so quiet. It seemed like there was no traffic whatsoever. And I couldn't understand why a big city like that, people were not going or coming.
Mm-hmm.
It just was really remarkable. So, but anyway, it was lucky for me that no one stopped me to find out that I was Jewish, because they probably would have, who knows, would have taken me in into or jail or whatever. So anyway, I came back to the hotel, and then a day or 2 days later, we came to Hamburg, and we got on the ship.
Did you travel by yourself?
Yes, I did travel by myself.
And what about the rest of your family?
Well,
Your parents?
my parents were left behind. I had 2 brothers and 3 sisters who were left behind. I had a brother and sister who have been in the United States for some time. One of my oldest sister came over in 1922. And her name is Sadie Davis. She still lives in Mount Pleasant, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother, Jack Schlanger, he came over about 2 years later, maybe 2-3 years later after she came out. And he lived here in Nashville most of the time. From the beginning, I think he lived someplace in Scranton, Pennsylvania. We had some family over there. And but most of the time he lived here in Nashville. He worked for an uncle. His name was Leopold Jacobs.
Mm-hmm.
He was in meat market,
Mm-hmm.
butcher. And then he went and worked for Steiner and Liv
Mm-hmm.
for a few years till he got married, and he married Jenny Klein from Russellville, Kentucky. And they lived in Kentucky for a few years. But I think they were in scrap iron business and also automobile supplies.
What about yourself? Any of your siblings stayed behind in Europe?
Oh
when
yeah,
you left?
as I said, my 2 brothers. I had
Yeah.
another 2 brothers.
Oh, there were 2 more brothers.
Yeah, 2 more brothers, William and Aaron,
Mm-hmm.
who stayed behind, and 3 sisters who my older sister's name was Gito in Jewish, or Gertrude, and my 2 younger sisters, the name was Esther and Fege in Jewish, or I don't know what would have been her English name here. And in fact, I have some of the pictures here.
And they did not come to
No,
America.
no,
Do
did
you
not
know
come
what
on-
happened
no,
to
did not
them?
come. No, they couldn't come over because already in 1939, 2 years after I came over, the war broke out.
Yeah.
And everything was closed up. Nobody could come or go.
Do you know what happened to them?
Well, they all were taken to concentration camps, and they were all gassed.
Your parents and your sister?
Well, my father got ill. He had problems with, he was like emphysema or something. He was smoking a lot. And so he died in a local concentration camp. It was in that city that I told you I was going to school to.
Like a ghetto?
And
or
so, yeah, like a ghetto, yeah. And so he was still buried in a, but I understand one of my friends said that they could not put him in a regular casket. They only put him in a sheet, and just put him in the ground that way. And in fact, in 1986, I went to Europe, and I thought that maybe they would let me go to my village where I was born. And I went to see his grave. But, excuse me, my mother insisted they were all taken.
They were taken. And you never were able to get any information as to where they were taken or where they ended up?
No, no.
Nothing.
The only information that I got is from my brothers and my sister-in-laws who went through concentration camps, and they said that they were taken to Dachau, I believe.
Mm-hmm. They ended up in Dachau.
The other one,
Buchenwald.
Buchenwald. And I believe that's where they were.
That's all the information you have on
Mm-hmm.
it. You want to show the pictures of your sister?
Well, this is my older sister. She had, this picture was probably taken in I was here about 2 years, maybe 39 or 1940. And she had at that time already 4 children, and probably by the time she was taken to concentration camp, she may have had another child or 2. And my 2 younger sisters, this is Esther and Vega, they were taken, actually the whole family went together. They
went as a family.
Yeah, they all went together, and they could have probably survived, but they were so close to my older sister, and they were told that if anybody had children, they would take them, separate. They would not bother them. They would not give them hard labor. And so they went and claimed my older sister's children, that they were their children.
Mm-hmm.
They took hold of, each sister got hold of 1 or 2 children and said that was their children. And so they sent them right away to the cleansing camps where they cleansed them and put them in the gas chamber. And this is my mother. She may have been at that time. This is the only picture we have of her. This was taken, I was still home, probably around 1935 or something like that. So she probably was around 42 years old. That picture, she may look older, but that's it.
And when did you came to America in 1937?
I came in 1937.
Did you come immediately to Nashville?
I arrived here on July 4th, actually 3rd of July 4th, that's right, to Nashville. And my sister, who's been here quite a few years already, she met me and she said, her birthday is on July 5th. She said, this is the nicest gift I got to get one of my sisters here. So it was...
well, you were fortunate. You had a brother here and a sister.
Yeah, I had a brother and sister, and I had my mother's family, my mother's brothers, all settled here in Nashville, excepting one who lived in Memphis, Tennessee. By the time I came out, I still had, I believe, 3, 4 uncles living.
So
she had, I believe, two uncles were already dead at that time, but I still had that many uncles left. And I stayed with one of my uncles. And till I learned the first year, of course, I couldn't talk English. I was going to night school to learn the English language. And I met quite a few of the German refugees that came over at that time.
Yeah. Did you get any further education here, or did you start working right away?
Yes, I did have to get more education. For one reason is that I had to go, well, more or less just really learn the language, learn the, grammar and spelling, English. And I was working over at May Hosier Mill, and I wanted to get to work in the office, so I went into comptometry. At that time, comptometry was being used in offices, you know, in the payroll offices. And I did very well, and so they took me into the office. Then in 1941, I left Nashville and went to Chicago. And I got a job as an assistant bookkeeper there in a wholesale hardware place. And about a year or 2 years later, my uncle passed away and my aunt was left by herself, so I came and stayed with her. I came back to Nashville and stayed with her for about a year. And I got my job back at May Hosier Mill in the office. And then in 1944, I went back to Chicago, and I got my old job back again there. And so I stayed on that job till I got married. Then after we got married, we bought a little store in Gary, Indiana, because that's where my husband was living, and a little grocery store. And a few months later, I don't know, one of my cousins was leaving for California, and she said, "You want to come with us?" So we sold the store and we went to California and lived there 12 years, Los Angeles.
Was your husband born in America?
No, he's also from Budapest, Hungary, but he came over in 1929, I believe.
So,
yeah.
Quite a while.
Well, it's about like 8 years before I did. Yeah.
Now, when you were still in Europe, how did the anti-Semitism affect you in the small town you lived in? Did you have any problems there?
Well, as far as, because there was always, you know, children would always be kind of mean, and some of the peasants, you know, they would always make remarks, you know, about the Jews. And I remember one incident that was about 2 years before I came over to the United States. I went to visit my sister who lived in another village about, I would say about maybe 15 kilometers away from our village. And her oldest daughter came home one day crying badly, and I said, "What's wrong with you?" And she said, "The teacher is very mean to her." I said, "Why is she mean to you? Aren't you doing okay at school?" She said, "Yeah, I try to do all right." So I said, "Well, let me go and talk to her." You know, I may have been that time already about 17, 18 years old. So I came to her school, and I said to the teacher, "May I talk to you?" And she said, "No, just wait till, you know, I get finished." And she let me sit there in the back. So after the teaching was over, and I talked to her, I said, "Why are you mean to my, you know, niece? I understand that she's doing pretty good at school." She said, "Then who are you?" I said, "I'm her aunt. You know, I told you she's my niece." And she looked at me kind of mean, and she said, "Oh, what is your business, whether I'm mean to her or not?" I said, "You know," I said, "she's just a child." I said, "Why do you have to be mean to her?" She said, "Well, she's Jewish, isn't she?" I said, "What does that have to do with that?" I said, "She's a human being." I said, "Why do you have to be mean to her?" And she said, "Well, she's just Jewish," she says, "and if I want to be mean to her, I will be mean to her." You know, she did not hide her anti-Semitism, let me put it that way. And at that time already, some of the people knew already what was going on. We were kind of ignorant, I tell you the truth, my family. And maybe because I was still young and I didn't pay much attention to what's going on. But I remember another incident. We had a good friend who used to come to our place the summertime, since we had that resort place. She was married to a Bohemian fellow, a very nice fellow. He was working for the government. And she was Jewish, but he was not. And she used to be very nice, and every time I would go and visit her when I was, in the city, because I was going to school there. And she would be very nice and receptive and friendly. But one day, when I saw her on the street and I said hello to her, and I started walking with her, she made a remark to me. She said, "Helene," she says, "I like you. I don't have anything against you. But," she says, "I'd rather if I'm not seen with you anymore." I said, "Why? What's going on?" She said, "Well, she says, I'm Jewish and I don't want them to know that I am Jewish." She said, "You know what's going on?" I said, I just was ignorant about it. So, but, later on I could understand why she did what she did.
But you actually from we were just talking about how the population at large treated you in 1935, 36, 37 in Czechoslovakia. Were there any restrictions put on you by the government?
No, not by the government, no. The government, I think almost to the last, they were just like the American government.
Mm-hmm. So there was no
problems
as far as where you could go or where you could not go?
The only restriction that I could see was at schools, where they would not accept Jewish boys or girls to a higher education. They were, as I said, to teacher colleges.
Was this all over Czechoslovakia at that time, that Jews could not get higher education, or was it just...
I really don't know about the whole country, but in our section it was very hard for a Jewish person, for a Jewish girl or boy to get into a teacher college or to any university.
Yeah, like lawyer or doctor.
Right. It was very, very hard to get into, especially if they knew that you were Jewish. And by the time in 1937, I suppose, completely stopped. No Jews were permitted at all. In fact, I took an exam, and I know I passed it very well to the teacher college, and they told me that I did not pass. And I said, "I'd like to see my grades. I'd like to see the paper," because I knew every question that they asked, that I answered it correctly. And they wouldn't show it to me. They just... So, and I know that it was very hard for a Jewish girl or boy, so I was happy to get out of there, because there was no chance for a Jewish girl or boy to get any place.
When did this start?
It probably started around 1935, 36, as soon as Hitler came in, especially, the longer he stayed in Germany, and things started, getting worse and worse for the Jewish people. We were in business, and actually, we did not feel it, as I said. I don't know, even in although my mother used to tell me, because I was not home, but she used to tell me that business is not as good as it used to be. People don't come around as much, in the summertime as they used to. But as I said, I was young and I didn't pay much attention to that.
And you contributed to the fact that you were Jewish, or just that business was off?
Well, I probably contributed that business was just off. I never thought, it just never entered my mind that being Jewish, because, as I said, the village that we lived in, and the peasants always used to make remarks, but,
and
that was sometimes my mother used to always explain it, that maybe it was just jealousy or whatever. But one thing I know, that all this condition coming about was not surprising. For one reason is that the Jews were despised because the priests and the ministers in Europe used to all the time preach the Jews killed their Jesus Christ. And for that reason, you know, they should be despised, and they, I don't know, they just made up all kind of lies against Jews, that they were dishonest, they were cheaters, they were this, they were that, they were taking advantage of the Christians. So when this condition came about, you know, when they came to pick them up, there was no problem. Nobody defended them. Nobody, in fact, they were glad that
to be rid of. And were you an observing family, religion-wise?
Well, yes, we were an observing family. My father and mother were very observant. For one reason, I mean, most of the Jews around there were the Orthodox Jews. You know, we didn't have reforms. The only thing we knew is the Orthodox. When it came to keep Saturday, Shabbos, you know, we were very strict about it. But
did you have a synagogue right in the village?
No, we did not have a synagogue in our village, but in the neighboring village, my brothers used to walk there on Saturday. And when it came to the holidays, to the high holidays, Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, they used to go to the city. There was a big synagogue, and they used to go to that synagogue for the high holidays. But during the, you know, Saturdays during the year, they were just going to the neighboring village, and I think they were praying in a private home.
Oh.
You know, all the Jews used to get together there.
About how many Jewish families were in the town? In
our village, we only had 3 Jewish families. One of the Jewish family that I know, their name was Memmerstein. They had about 4 children, 4 or 5, I believe. Can't remember exactly. And I believe they were all taken away too, except one boy we met here. He lives in Chicago. He changed his name from Memmerstein to Mashek. And he's still in Chicago. He married a girl from Czechoslovakia, I mean from one of the Slovak counties there. And the third family, their name was, I think, Wolf. And they didn't have any children, but they were bringing up, I think, a nephew. I think it was a nephew. And they were bringing him up. But they didn't have any of their own family, and I really don't know what happened to them.
Don't even know what happened to them, whether they got out or not.
No, I really don't know. Now the neighboring village, you know, they had, there were about 6 or 7 Jewish families. And I think some of them were, you know, survived and came to the United States. Some of them, I think there are 2 boys that I know of, the Spiegels. They live in in New York. And some of them, even 1 or 2, maybe went out to Israel after the war, but most of them were done away with.
And nobody who stayed in Europe of the 2 villages you know of survived?
No, I don't think so. Nobody lives there because...
Not to your knowledge?
No, no. In fact, my brother, William, he passed away about a year and a half ago. He went back after the concentration camp to the village, to our village, and he didn't find anyone that he knows of, and didn't hear of anyone. And the Russians were coming in, and in fact, he got into prison there, and he was just lucky to escape from the prison, he paid off somebody and was able to escape.
Now, since he is no longer alive and his son is not alive anymore either, do you want to tell a little bit about his story?
Who's the
Williams.
William. Well, William and Aaron, let's see, they both, my older brothers, William passed away, as I said. Aaron, I still have a living brother, Aaron. I had 3 brothers.
One of your brothers, you said, survived the war.
2 brothers survived.
2 survived the war.
Yeah, because Jack, my oldest brother, came out to the United States way before the war.
Right. Now I'm talking about the one who
and
did
William
not come
and
out.
Aaron, they survived the war. And
Where were they during the war?
They were in labor camps. They were in concentration camp. One of my brothers was already in front of the firing squad. They were going to shoot him. And I don't know, I guess just by luck or God's help or whatever you may call it, somehow
They survived.
he survived. And
but you don't really know their story as to exactly where they were and how they were liberated or any of these things. You don't know those?
Not exactly, but I believe you probably have it on file because didn't you interview, I believe, Esther Schwanger, who is my sister-in-law, William's.
She might have the information.
Yeah, she probably knows more about it. And my brother Arnold Schlanger, he's still living. He probably could, he should maybe be interviewed. He'll probably tell you some.
Well, if he was in the camps?
Oh, yeah. He was in labor.
I don't think we're aware of that. I'll have to double check that.
Yeah, he definitely was in camps. He's the one that was telling me that he was almost shot,
Because we would like to hear his story also.
Yeah. Well, anyway, William and Aaron, William came out 10 years after I came out in 1947, and Aaron came out in 1948. They were both liberated and went to Italy. They stayed in Italy. I think Aaron stayed there. And in fact, Aaron got married in Italy.
Oh.
Yeah, and William got married in Prague. I think it was Prague, yeah. And so after they came out here, they both were working for a while, and then they went into business together. They had a scrap iron business in Colombia, and thank God they did very well. They prospered.
And you prospered too. You've been doing very well too, haven't you?
Thank God. I can't complain. Put some money into real estate when I had a little money, bought real estate when it was very reasonable that time yet. And so I never
you
had
too
to...
can say America has been good to me.
Yes, America has been good to all of us. I would say not just to me or to my immediate family, but to everyone else. Yes, I could say that. So we were just lucky, I guess, to wind up here in the United States. I don't know how the people did when they went to Canada or to Israel, but I think everybody that came to the United States and was willing to work hard, they did okay.
Most. Some did not. Some did not.
Some did
but
not.
Most did.
I think if you had your health and you were willing to work.
You could. Oh, there was no question about that.
And you did not throw away your money, but were, thrifty about it. And
Well, Helene, thank you very much for telling us about your story. And good luck for the future.
I thank you for being able to tell the story. And I hope that no one will ever have to tell a story like that anymore.
Well, that's why we cannot afford to forget.